Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Welcome back to VALORANT news, and despite a massive victory over Loud yesterday at Champions, many pro players believe that indeed OpTic Gaming will be breaking up going into next season. Whether it's the Marved discussion, whether it's other players wanting to leave for more money, whatever the situation is, many believe OpTic Gaming will not stay the same regardless of how well they do at this tournament. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you are new as always. I would greatly appreciate it. Plenty to discuss today. First of all, this from Ghost Gaming, confirming indeed the Ghost will no longer be a part of VALORANT going forwards. Their entire roster is now free agents, of course. Nismo and other players, you know, Gen.G, Broker, Proto, Kaplan, Koala Noob, Gunter, all these guys are now officially free agents, I suppose, in the market, right? So they had a good time in VALORANT. They almost got to, you know, they almost did well enough to knock out Sentinels at the LCQ and get to the LCQ themselves, but after getting double-rounded in the playoffs right back at the main event in Stage 2, could have been a very different season for those guys. They looked so good for a brief period of time, but this is just one example of why next season's going to be incredibly spicy and why practically every move is on the table here, because all of these guys want to get a spot in the franchise league, and of course other teams that are good but maybe not that good will consider the services of all of these players. So Ghost are pulling out. Of course, it was a possibility that they could stick around in the tier 2 sides, but for now that is not going to be the case. They will continue to evaluate, of course, the possibility going forwards. And this is George Gedder says, VALORANT rostermania post-champions will be the most insane period that we've ever seen, which of course I've been saying for weeks, of course is going to be the case. That's what happens when partnership franchising comes along. Apparently some crazy deals are already starting to take place though, and every single team is safe from changes regardless of what happens, or isn't safe from changes, sorry, so nothing is potentially guaranteed here, but yeah, no rosters are probably, well, maybe some rosters stay the same, but it's very unlikely that more than, you know, 5-10% of teams, I think, stay together going into next season. And even this is Arjun says OpTic staying together after this tournament, and George says the following. So you know, maybe he doesn't want to comment too much, but kind of implying that indeed something is going on here. So last night during the matches, we talked about it yesterday, right? The possibility that Shroud mentions of the whole Marved throwing accusations back in Counter-Strike that maybe will prevent Riot. Effectively, they might have some sort of blacklist for some players that don't want to be part of the league. Now, you know, whether that's the case or not, who really knows? But the guys last night were talking in the watch party and suggesting that OpTic will be breaking up regardless of how well they do. Now, maybe this is like an individual thing or whatever it is. Some people suggesting they might leave for more money, but there's some reason why these guys believe that OpTic are definitely going to be breaking apart.
So if OpTic have a deep performance, do you guys think they still make a roster change?
For the rest of the tournament,
we were talking about it.
This early and look,
I mean, we know something's happening.
Oh, will they still do it? If they will still do it even if they make a deep performance?
I don't think the team will make the decision. I think it's going to be individual's decision. If that makes sense.
Oh, to leave.
Probably. That's probably what makes the most sense, right?
It's the green light. It's wide open.
Yeah. I mean, if you make a deep performance, hopefully they can try to figure it out. It's like, where are people gonna go that's gonna be better?
But in the meantime, let's get crashy, so they're not going to have the easiest
it might not be about what's better though. It might be what offers the most.
Can they keep control of this?
If that's the case, then it's different, yeah.
Just think about it, like if you've won, like they've won championships and stuff. What do you hunt after that? You go for money.
Yeah,
like
but then what are you competing for? You're competing for to win again, right? Win champions again.
Maybe.
Well, yeah.
They absolutely are.
Depends on what their
priorities
are at.
He wants this done. Sassy's still standing, but this has been systematic.
Oh, OpTic best pro team in the world. At the moment.
Yeah, buddy. Let's go!
NA undefeated, 3-0 in series.
So the theory that I slightly more aligned to and what most people have been talking about right now is that this whole idea that some of the players, because like in previous years in Counter-Strike, for example, there's been players the likes of Marved and others as well. Like even Stellar, I think, has been involved on 100 Thieves in some sort of match-fixing, throwing controversy, where these players have been accused and have good evidence, I think, especially in Marved's case and others, to have, you know, match fix have actually thrown games and were outed to some degree from the Counter-Strike community. VALORANT came out at an optimal time. They went over to VALORANT and really nobody seems to care too much, right? They joined one of the best teams, had great results. Now, there may be some sort of unwritten agreement. I believe Richard Lewis, I think people were mentioning that this may not be fully accurate, but there was some talk about the possibility that certain players that have been involved in this stuff aren't exactly going to be banned from the Partnership League next season by Riot, but the teams have kind of agreed to not give these guys a spot next season. So certain players that have serious allegations against them, like with match fixing and the like, may well, for whatever reason, not be involved in partnership next season. Now, whether Riot have said that specifically, or whether teams have kind of agreed to not give these guys a spot to kind of, to uphold the integrity of the league to a certain extent, even if now they're not doing it anymore, that's a bit of a question mark, right? So that's one of the big things about the whole Marved question, and whether that is the reason. Now, we know that Victor and Crashies, their contracts are at an end, and maybe if Marved isn't allowed to compete for whatever reason, right, as we just mentioned, like if that is indeed the case, and Marved has to, I don't even know what he's going to do, right? Maybe he starts a stream or something, right? And if that's a possibility for potentially other guys as well, even like, Shanks and some other players have had their names kind of thrown into that hat here, is, of course, it's allegations, it's not guaranteed, but if the allegations are serious enough, then Riot may still be taking a stand on this, and therefore if Marved is gone, then what's the chance the rest of the other four stay together, right? Especially if they have their opportunities elsewhere. So we shall see, but those guys seem to believe and seem to know something as to why this team is going to blow it apart, and that it's not just OpTic that people are talking about, it's plenty of other rosters as well that are in deep discussions right now with what potentially might happen going forward. Let's of course talk about the matches that went down last night, of course OpTic included. DRX took down Fury without too many issues last night, 2-0, relatively convincing. Then we've got to talk about this 100T series. I predicted both Fnatic and 100T to be the two teams that made it through that group. I've been really confident in 100T, but especially given they all were tested positive, right, and were unwell, and now all of a sudden they're coming through, and of course Will was, I think, the only one who was okay. At least he was the only one who didn't test positive, was actually okay, and Will was absolutely going off last night. This guy was pretty good online, don't get me wrong, but this guy might be a different beast when it comes to LAN. Game 1 was of course Pearl, 100 Thieves take it in the end. Fnatic bounce back, Mystic actually turned up big time on Game 2 here, on Bind as Fnatic bounce back. Of course, Fnatic one of the big favourites for this entire tournament. I thought coming in 100 Thieves were a great team. I thought they could put up a good fight against Fnatic, but given the fact that they were kind of, they're tested positive and stuff, I kind of doubted that they would be able to quite deliver the performance that they were maybe expecting to be able to deliver, and a performance that I thought would be good enough to get themselves through the group regardless. But it's now Fnatic that have the pressure on. Great result right here for Fnatic in Game 2. Mystic turned up, but then they kind of disappeared in the third map of the series, and 100 Thieves won the first series that they played here in Champions. Honestly, another dominant offensive side. Sean Gares has got to be, this guy is an absolute master at work, to be honest, sometimes. This guy, he calls a timeout, they just win the next few rounds. Their offenses as well, this is kind of the big thing. In Counter-Strike, often you'll see that it's the defensive side that often a load of defensive round wins in a row can get you the victory. In Valorant, a team that's well equipped on their offense can really take over games. That's what 100 Thieves do so often. Their offensive win rate must be just so good. And to deliver exactly that against a team like Fnatic here is incredible performance from them. So Game 3, banger to be honest, but it's 100T that go through and take down EMEA. So it's incredible really, because I'm pretty sure that OpTic, their record against EMEA is terrible. They don't ever beat EMEA teams. But for 100 Thieves, they pretty much always beat these teams. So I don't really know how it works, but it's incredible to see. But yes, 2-1 for 100 Thieves over Fnatic. First international team I've ever played against, he says. So quite the performance from these guys, and what a roster that they've built here, because when this roster was built, some people weren't particularly happy with it, but I just knew when this team was formed that these guys are talented players that also are going to be willing to put in the time and the grind that it takes to succeed, and they've got the right team around them as well. So Derek, great performance from him once again, the entire team of course, and that's the thing, I know, but he can. 100 Thieves comes out and takes down Fnatic for now. They drop down to the losers bracket. We'll see their bracket here in a second, because that is not getting easy for them. Then we'll talk about the final series of the Loud versus OpTic, another Loud versus OpTic match that goes a rather similar way. Loud came out swinging here Game 1, and for all the talk that I had about the kind of defensive sides maybe not being quite so strong in Valorant, the one map often which is the Inception is Breeze, where Loud have a dominant defensive side. They just completely smoke OpTic, and OpTic tried to get back into it, but it wasn't quite enough. Game 2, OpTic bounced back on Fracture, of course a map where these guys played before. Victor back on the Neon again, making plays right here on the Neon. I'm sure Loud have probably seen this one before from back in Masters 1, but yes, in the end OpTic take down Loud here, take it to a Game 3, and this was a dominant Game 3 at the end of the day here on Pearl. It's cool to see Pearl having a lot of playtime so far, because get to see what a lot of teams have come up with ideas on, which teams are better prepared on this map, and I think you can kind of be inclined that there could be a lot of blowouts on this map, just because some teams are probably going to have much better ideas than others if it does come down to it. But largely, you're not going to pick this map unless you actually have some idea what's going on. FNS making some big plays though, got them to the series point, and they get the job done in the end. 2-1 versus Loud, as EA says, always respect that team. Crazy team, of course, and Loud drop down to losers bracket. Tough scenes, but we'll see how they could fare here in a second. And even Zelsis says, OpTic is winning champs. Can't believe you betrayed us. But I believe Zelsis also tweeted out shortly before this, and also maybe said on stream that, yeah, 100 Thieves is winning champs as well. well. So, like, yes, both North American teams right now, with the exception of xNed, who believe might be in action today, are, well, having good results so far. OpTic, of course, locking their spot to the playoffs. We'll see the bracket how that's shaping up here in a second. I don't believe we get to know what the bracket looks like for playoffs for, well, we're not for quite some time. We only have 2 teams so far qualified for playoffs. One, of course, being the team we saw on the first day, of course, Leviathan. OpTic as well made it through to the playoffs, but despite all the kind of good vibes on this team and how things are going, like, yeah, pretty much everyone seems to believe this team will not be staying together. Is it the Marved situation? Is it the Crashies or Victor situation? Because, yeah, obviously this team probably in theory would like to stay together, especially if they win this tournament and opt to get into franchising as you would expect they would. That's the other question. Have OpTic been denied from franchising? That to me seems unlikely, just because it's not just OpTic and that brand, but it's also Envy in the backing that they have, which seems to make sense to me to actually go down that route. So I kind of doubt that Riot would be rejecting OpTic, especially given the results their team has actually had, right? I mean, obviously that doesn't really weigh that highly in their consideration, but it's at least something to consider. So far 2 teams have qualified. Leviathan made it through, OpTic Gaming made it through. Now we get in the losers packet in a couple of days time. We get Boom, Zeta, and then Loud on the 7th of September. So they've got to wait a long time, Loud, to try and complete their run all the way through this group. So they've got a few days off now. But yes, today is of course September the 3rd, and we have these games in action. So FPX versus Crew, xNed versus Xerxia, and then the decider game from Group D, DRX versus 100T. The way 100T played yesterday, like, I know DRX were great, but I don't know. I took 100 Thieves and Fnatic to make it through this group, so I'm going to stick to my guns on that one and say 100 Thieves win this series. And I guess I should take FPX here and xNed respectively, I think is what I did in my predictions early on, which are maybe slightly better than 50% now, but it's still not looking too good. Very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, hit the like button and tell us your YouTube gods this is a good video. I'd just like you to see it as well, and I grow the competitive Valorant community. Thank you for watching as always. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.